Hello, everybody. Warm welcome to Online Peace Education, a webinar series organized by the Permanent Secretariat of the Nobel Summit of Nobel Peace Laureates as part of the youth program Leading by Example. In the 7th webinar of this series, organized in partnership with the POP or Protect Our Planet movement, we will have an intergenerational dialogue on environmental justice and equity. The United States Environmental Protection Agency defines environmental justice as, and I quote, the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people regardless of race, color, national origin, or income with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. This goal will be achieved when everyone enjoys the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards and equal access to the decision-making process to have a healthy environment in which to live, learn, and work, quotes closed. The webinar today will underscore the importance of environmental justice, where equity and justice serve as the fundamental premise for climate action and sustainable development. As guest speakers for the session, we are honored to have the opportunity to welcome His Excellency Dr. Ramos-Horta, former President of Timor-Leste, Nobel Peace Laureate, and Her Excellency Dr. Ameenah Gurib-Fakim, the 6th President and first female President of Mauritius, who are here with us today. I request Gabriela, our youth mentor from the POP movement, to introduce our guests, please. His Excellency Dr. José Ramos-Horta will provide a key address followed by an insightful and engaging conversation with Her Excellency Dr. Ameenah Gurib-Fakim. A very warm, Your Excellency. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you here. Us deeply humbled. A warm welcome once again. And with that, I request Gabriela, please.
Thank you, Dr. Ash. Well, my name is Gabriela Madrid. I'm from Venezuela, and actually I represent the youth leader from my country, and it's an honor for me to be here with you. In 1996, Her Excellency José Dr. Ramos-Horta won the Nobel Peace Prize together with Bishop Carlos Felipe Jiménez Fellow for their work towards a just and peaceful solution to the conflict in the East Timor. He was the president of the East Timor between 2007 and 2012. He was a renowned peace builder and advocate for the democracy. Dr. Ramos-Horta worked in taking his country from the devastating conflict to peace and economic growth in just over a decade. That served as a model for building democracy in the 21st century. In 1988, Dr. Ramos-Horta resigned his membership in the Revolutionary Front for an Independent East Timor and became an independent politician. Though he continued to work with the Front, representing the organization as permanent representative to the United Nations. Dr. Ameenah Gurib-Fakim earned a BSc in chemistry from the University of Surrey in 1983 and a PhD from the University of Exeter in UK in 1987. She has served as Professor, Dean of Faculty, and Vice Chancellor at the University of Mauritius. On 5th June 2015, she was sworn in as 6th President of the Republic of Mauritius and the first female President of this. In June 2016, she was in the Forbes list of 100 most powerful women and first in the top of 100 women in Africa Forbes list in 2017 and 2019. She has been honored as one of 400 Policies of 2015 Global Thinkers. She has authored and co-edited numerous book shapers, and scientific articles in the field of sustainable development and has been a recipient of several awards and honors. Now, we request Her Excellency Dr. José Ramos-Horta to share his key message with us. We're welcome, Your Excellency.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good morning.
Good evening. Good afternoon. Good morning. Wherever you may be.
Horta.
This is José Ramos-Horta,
Timor-Leste,
former President of
Southeast
Timor-Leste, a small
island nation,
Southeast Asia island nation,
Southeast
on the edge of the world. Southeast Asia on the edge of the world.
Very late hour.
Speaking at this very late hour.
To
time difference.
Those of you
who are
participating
across the
in
globe,
this web
who are participating in this webinar dialogue
climate change,
on justice,
environment,
climate change, environment, climate
we
justice.
have just come out of
major floods. Fortunately, it was not a cyclone,
enough.
but frightening enough.
People displaced,
thousands of people displaced,
and the
40 people dead,
destruction of
and the mass
these
destruction of the
we
infrastructure.
experience here on
These scenes that we experienced here only a few days ago
in a much
are repeated elsewhere,
Indonesia,
much grander scale,
Philippines,
in Indonesia,
across
in the
South
Philippines,
India,
across South Asia,
Bangladesh,
India,
Nepal,
Pakistan, Bangladesh,
China,
Nepal,
across the United States, across
China,
Africa, Latin America.
across the United States, across Africa, Latin America.
It's showing the stress.
Natural,
I would say
it's showing the stress,
at the way for hundreds
I would say the anger,
beings
at the way for hundreds of years we human beings,
have done so
inhabitants
much
of this planet,
Earth.
have done so much damage to Mother Earth. Beginning particularly with the colonization,
globalization first started.
actually globalization first started 500 years ago when
began to
European powers
flock to the rest of the world.
began to flock to the rest of the world. First, obviously, in small numbers,
criminals,
sailors, adventurers, criminals,
scientists with
but also
purpose,
Nobel scientists with noble purpose, discover the world, discover for themselves. Because the great civilization like China, India were already there, more advanced than Europeans of the Middle Ages.
and through them,
But discover for them,
of course,
and through them,
massive waves over
of course, began
of colonization,
massive waves
genocide.
over centuries of colonization,
Latin
genocide.
America, modern Latin America.
What is Latin America, modern Latin America today? These are Europeans, descendants of Europeans who first went to the Americas,
all the way to Brazil, Chile,
today Canada,
displaced
Mexico,
indigenous people,
all the way to Brazil, Chile,
genocide,
displaced indigenous peoples,
environmental
caused genocide,
changes,
and they began the environmental changes, the impact,
generations,
slowly, gradually, over generations, hundreds of millions of people moved to
United States,
some of the modern countries of today, Canada, the United States, all South America, Australia, New Zealand,
nations,
and created new continents, new nations, with all the advantages that came out of it.
technology.
We benefited
Humanity
from science and technology.
we live
Yes, humanity progressed. We live much longer than 100 years ago. We have a greater access to knowledge, to information, to science, technology, to medicine, that save us from some of the basic illnesses that
devastate
generations ago would easily kill, devastate Europe
the world.
and elsewhere in the
Today, at 21st
rest of the world.
century, we are
But today, in the 21st century, we are facing extraordinary challenges.
probably the
COVID-19 is probably the ultimate expression of the 21st century challenges that we are not prepared. We have not been prepared to deal with. Hundreds of thousands of people have died and they may continue to die. As I speak here today to you, I have read how there is upsurge of COVID casualties, infections in India, in Europe, like in Germany, in France, in the United States continue unabated, in Brazil, tragic situation.
More than 1 year.
In Timor-Leste, we had more than 1 year, basically without any COVID positive. Suddenly, over the last 2-3 months, we began to have a surge in infections. Unfortunately, almost all the cases are asymptomatic, and we have 2 deaths in the course of last year and this year, and the 2 deaths that have been registered, not entirely attributed to COVID-19. Those 2 patients had many other illnesses. So in some ways, we are not panicking, we are fortunate, we are blessed.
The floods.
We are also fortunate that the floods did not worsen into a cyclone.
We have a taste of the challenges.
We have a taste of the challenges that the rest of the world face. We have a taste of what the damage that has been done to
all of us,
humanity from our actions. All of us, humanity actions.
Challenges of these illnesses.
Casualties of these challenges of these illnesses
for the poor people.
Are being primarily for the poor people.
The poorest
in South Asia, the poorest in America, the poorest in Africa,
the poorest
and the poorest in our own country. The poorest who have a
It appears there was some disturbance in the audio. But I think we're going to try again and see if we're able to get it to work. Otherwise, we'll just progress with the next item on the agenda. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good morning. Wherever you may be.
This is José
Ramos-Horta, President of Timor-Leste, a small Southeast Asian island nation on the edge of Southeast Asia, on the edge of the world,
speaking at this
Well, apologies. I think we had some technical issue there, but we'll see if we're able to resolve it. I think for now, it would be a good idea to progress with the agenda. And with that, I'm going to ask Philo, please, if you would take us forward, please. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. We will now open to a conversation between the youth from across geographies in Latin America, Africa, and Asia, and Her Excellency Dr. Ameenah Gurib-Fakim. A very warm welcome, Your Excellency. Through this intergenerational conversation that we've envisioned, we hope to discuss the cause of climate justice, gender equality, inclusion, and resilience, to emphasize the role of leadership both at the community level and at higher decision-making in promoting inclusive strategies and solutions that uphold the principles of environmental justice. Due to the nature of the technology, we're having the questions of youth in the form of pre-recorded videos, but the young people who contributed to these questions are witnessing this as live audience today, and they will respond through chat. We will play each question and await your answer. First, we have Lucy Damian from Nigeria, who will present her first question.
Hi everyone, my name is Damian from Nigeria, and my question.
Hi everyone, my name is Damian from Nigeria, and my question is: not everyone is affected by this environmental crisis, and in fact, those who contribute least to this crisis tend to be the most affected by the consequences. So my question is: how can this be taken into consideration or into account when drafting the solutions to this problem? Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Ash for putting this together, and of course with his team, and also great thanks to the Nobel Secretariat as well for putting together this very important meeting. And you're right, Ash, you're right to the entire team to actually encourage an intergenerational dialogue, because this is so important. And we need to bring in, of course, more and more the youth, because I think the future belongs to you. And the planet, in fact, we borrowed it from you. So we have the duty to give it back to you in a better shape. But unfortunately, I don't think we are going to do that, judging by the state of things. And so what we'll have to do is discuss on remedial means and methods that we can bring so that we leave it in a slightly, less bad state, if I may use the terminology. To come quickly to the question that has been asked, yes, we are increasing talk about climate justice. We are increasingly going to talk about adaptation and mitigation. And I think tomorrow is a very important day for the climate, because tomorrow the big leaders, the leaders of the at least G20, because they are the countries that produce, I think, over 80% of the world GDP. And among them, of course, are some of the biggest polluters. And I think they're going to put their heads together to see how best to address climate issues. The lady from Nigeria is right. If you look at some regions of the world, they haven't actually contributed at all, if anything, if hardly any, to greenhouse gas emission. And yet we see that these countries are going to be very, very badly impacted. Many countries in Africa, they are going to bear the brunt of it. And she's rightly said that these countries have not emitted. And small island countries like mine stand to bear the brunt in terms of the rising sea levels. So definitely, I think why I think we have to understand why Paris in 2015 was a success is because of the NDCs, the INDCs, the Intentional National Defined Contribution. And this was the first time that countries came together and realized that there is an issue and this has to be tackled fast. So by putting together INDCs, countries made commitment, and these INDCs gradually became the NDCs. But having said this, we all realize that we are going towards a common goal. But I think what is going to happen is that we also realize that the responsibilities toward that goal has to be differentiated, which means that those who have polluted over the years, over the centuries, they will have to put their hands deeper into the pocket so as to help those who are more vulnerable. But unfortunately, again, I'll have to caveat this, is that these are very lofty ideals that we want to help those, but pledges very often get limited to discourse. And people don't go or they don't deliver on the pledges. So I think the responsibility of your movement is to actually hold them to account, that they have to deliver on the promises they make. And so we'll wait tomorrow what's going to happen. But I think many countries, in fact, if you look at a country like India itself, India has been able to address her own emission. And I think they are on target. They may be about 2 or 3% less than the prescribed target for Paris. But I think now that the big polluters are going to be meeting tomorrow, I think we're going to have to monitor the conversation, lip read as much as possible, so as to hold them to account on the pledges they're going to make tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I think a lot of it are at stake tomorrow, and it depends on our advocacy to push for differentiated responsibilities that they need to push for. Now I invite Omar from Venezuela to present his next question.
Hi everyone, my name is Omar Montero.
Hi everyone, my name is Omar Montero. I'm from Venezuela and I'm a member of POOT movement.
Your Excellency, Your Excellency, my question will be about COVID-19. As we know, COVID-19 has brought new challenges across the world. Vulnerable, marginalized, indigenous, and low-income communities have been impacted the most at a social and economical level. So my question is, what does a just recovery look like? Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you. I think COVID-19, unfortunately, is not yet history. We are still very much in the midst of it. And you addressed the issue of, how it came about. I think if you go by the present rhetoric, which is coming out of some of the big countries, that especially the WHO report, which is still not finalized, that the COVID emanated from transmission from wild animals onto human, the virus jumped. And so I think the first question we have to ask ourselves is that how come this virus jumped to humans? Are we going too close to wildlife? If we are going too close to wildlife, it means that we are destroying the forest more and more. And so that brings us closer to wildlife. And so that's the first thing we have to look at in terms of addressing environmental degradation. We need to reduce our footprint, the impact that we have on nature. And so the first of all priorities, one of the major priorities would be to rewild nature, to actually stop the destruction of the forest. And who says destruction of the forest means destruction of the livelihoods of so many indigenous peoples? I know South America is replete, and so is Africa, and of course parts of India as well, Asia. So this is one thing that we have to bear in mind, how to change our livelihoods, how to change the way we do things by reducing our impact on the forest. Then we saw that when COVID arrived, we saw that it was impacting countries and regions which were most polluted. So this brings us back again to man-made pollution, which was, of course, helping the transmission of COVID. And unfortunately, Ash is from India, and we're seeing now that India is number 2 in terms of the record numbers of infection per day. And of course, accompanying fragile infrastructure, at least of the health sector, which again is highlighting the necessity for reinvesting in our infrastructure. So that is the second thing, that we saw that pollution is helping to transmit the virus even more. But then the third thing that we have to contemplate, at least when it comes to looking at the management of COVID, the destruction of how our infrastructure, be it social, the social infrastructure, how do we help the poorer sections of our communities, of our societies? What has been the infrastructure that the governments, the leaders have put in place so that these people who are left out there without a job, who are on page, how do we ensure that they have the basic minimum, at least food, if anything else? So I think what the COVID has done, the COVID has revealed many of the fault lines in our system. It has revealed the fault line along the way we live, we destroy, because we mustn't forget that when we measure the GDP growth in any country, is based on destruction, it's based on cutting down trees, and of course exploitation. So this is the way we have been measuring our GDP. So we need to relook at the way of doing business, and of course operating economically at that level. The second thing is, again, how to encourage the reduction in pollution. At least air quality in some countries is an issue, and we know that COVID is transmitted through air. And then the third one is to look at our investment in the appropriate infrastructure. And we have seen that those countries that have social safety net, those are the countries, the regions where the poorer section of the community, they have been less vulnerable. So bringing on board social safety net, and this is to me an investment, looking at the health infrastructure. I think the COVID, in a way, although it's causing destruction, is also helping us to see where the green shoots can be. So if we are to actually counteract, to actually manage how we're going to tackle COVID for the next few months, in fact, maybe a couple of years, because I don't think we will have the normality pre-2019 until, of course, by 2024. I mean, this is a projection. So what do we do once we emerge out of the COVID? Where are the areas where we're going to invest? In fact, where are the areas we literally have to just jettison because it is no longer viable to invest in these pillars anymore? How are we investing in ICT, for example? We have seen how much our livelihoods have depended, in fact, right now as we speak, through this media, how the investment in this infrastructure has helped maintain communication across the world. So this is, I think, it's going to bring us forth to a complete rethink of the way we are doing business, and maybe it's just as well, you know, for as people have said time and time again, a crisis is such an opportunity, is an opportunity not to be missed. So let us build on that.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm just reminded of what Dr. José Ramos-Horta said in the beginning about how COVID-19 is the ultimate expression of the 21st century challenge that we face today that we are not prepared to deal with. So it is important that we have, through COVID-19, we're revisiting these fault lines, which should make us redefine what GDP is, rethink on the concepts of economy, business, and make conscious investments and so on. For the next question, I now invite Ivan from Mexico. Thank you.
Greetings. I'm Ivan RANSOM, a sustainability expert from Mexico, and I co-founded Resilience, which focuses on eco-techniques and their integration into a circular economy system. My question is, how can the countries or regions that contribute the most greenhouse gases take the lead in reaching climate justice through inclusive solutions at the local and global level? Should there be a sense of responsibility? Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan. And I think we addressed part of that question earlier on. We talk about responsibility, common but differentiated. What that means is that those countries, those regions which have polluted most, they are the ones that are going to have to contribute more to helping those at the lower rung of the ladder in terms of whether they are going to be more vulnerable. I think we know that, for example, island states and the areas like the low-lying areas are going to be flooded. So they have to be equipped with the appropriate investment, the appropriate tools, so that these countries, these regions can adapt. But those countries that have been polluting, they're going to have to start looking at technologies that will help them mitigate their impact on climate change. But I think there is something that you mentioned earlier on in your question is about the rethinking of a circular economy. And this is so important because so far our model of development has been very linear. We have explored, we have extracted, we have consumed, we have thrown away. But I think a lot of what we throw now is a resource that has to be relooked at so that we become much more responsible in the way we consume. So that's one thing that we have to address. And the other thing that I think as from tomorrow we're going to have a better idea, when it came to capitalization of the Green Fund, initially, after Paris, we were talking about $100 billion pot. Many countries balked at this. Now, the question I'll ask you as a bunch of young people, just think of the entire global GDP. The global GDP, if you really look at the contribution of all the major players, let's look at the United States, let's look at China, let's look at India, let's look at the European Union, for example. We are already talking about over $50 trillion US. Now, if these countries, which are now part of the Green Fund, would have helped and should be used to help poorer countries adapt. They should be given the tools to be able to actually look at how to address climate change. And here I was thinking of one area, for example, in Africa. We have seen over the past few years how crops have failed. Crops have failed because of the changing rain pattern. We have seen a couple of years ago, there had been massive flooding on the east coast of Africa, and on the west coast of, on the east coast of Australia, there were massive fires, right? There were droughts. In fact, as we speak, I think there are already a few places in Australia which are being flooded. So these erratic rain pattern in Africa is causing a lot of damage to agriculture on the continent. And if you look at the African continent is 60% of the world's arable land in the world. And 85% of this arable land is under, well, agriculture is 85% rain-fed. Now, just think that these farmers, that these regions with nice strips of land, of course, fertile land, if these areas, these people had been empowered with the appropriate technology. We have seen just now, today I was watching a documentary in Sudan, where they're using drone technology to green the Sahel and the Sahara region, right? So just think that if these regions have been given the appropriate technologies, how much progress we would have been able to make, if only for addressing food security on the continent. Now, again, I come back to my continent, of course, Africa. We know that water is going to be a very big issue very, very soon, because increasing number of population, and we have seen, yesterday I was looking at, unfortunately, the demise of President Deby, and that brought me to thinking about Lake Chad. Lake Chad has been contracted, at least in size, but 90% of contraction of Lake Chad. And Lake Chad provides water to about 30 to 50 million people, of course, of all the surrounding regions in Africa. Now, if you look at the changing weather pattern, I'm only looking at one area here, which is, of course, food security and water security, impacted directly with climate change. Now, providing these people with the tools is going to be a great help. And another point that I would also like, I hope that tomorrow they'll be thinking about this. You know, all our laws, we call our laws, they are TRIPS compliant, trade-related intellectual property. And I think here again, there should be a call, there should be a movement to ensure that some of the technologies, when people use it, they should be TRIPS free. Because developing countries spend huge amount of money paying the royalties on these technologies that they actually import. So the next question we have to ask ourselves as a bunch of young people, and I think India has done very well on that score, how do you develop your own indigenous technology? How the research at universities can be really adapted, really translated into the appropriate tools. So there is a huge, huge gap that has to be addressed in terms of rethinking the way we teach, rethinking the way we learn, our tertiary education system, the extension service from university to the areas where it is most needed. So there is a rethink to be done. And what I've said for Africa is also applicable to many parts of Asia and, of course, to South America. All these regions have to really rethink of the way they consume, how they adapt to go into a circular economy. So all these things have to be rethought. But I think with era, health is also investment. Investment in our infrastructure matters more than ever. And COVID, as I said earlier on, may be a boon, for us to rethink. So this is a long answer, I'm sorry.
That was very insightful, actually. Thank you very much. I think the overarching truth is that we need to have the will to mobilize from the collective GDP and to capitalize the Green Fund to, like you said, to equip with tools and appropriate investments that will be transformed into the goals that we need to fulfill. For the next question, I invite Meda Hope Malinga from Uganda to present the next question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellencies, for that amazing response. Thank you so much, Your Excellencies, for that amazing response. I'm Ameenah Hope. I'm a student, founder, and Ameenah Hope. I'm a student, founder, and coordinator. I'd like to ask my question. Proud Ugandan. Which is question. I'd like to ask my question. Women are unjustly affected by the climate. Women are unjustly affected by the climate crisis. However, empowering women can have, but on their families and only on them. But on their families and communities as well. How can women be empowered to live more resilient households and communities? Thank you.
My pet subject, women issues. You know, if you look again where you come from, Uganda, of course, East Africa and the entire African continent. Here, I make a point for Africa because what I'm going to say may not apply to Asia, because Asia has been very successful in ensuring being successful in the Green Revolution, and I think Africa missed the boat. If we look at only one sector, I come back to the agricultural sector, because this is a sector which is mostly driven by women, and women in Africa, women feed the continent. And so again, to just put a value to the sector, the entire African continent, as I mentioned earlier on, is 60% of the world's arable land. And if we look at it from the business perspective, we are talking about a $1 trillion business. And those people who actually operate in this sector, they are women, they feed the continent, and unfortunately 80% of them, they operate in the informal sector. And I dread to think what is going to happen as we emerge from the COVID. Why I say this is because when you operate in the informal sector, you do not have access to all the stimulus package that the formal business can benefit from government. So unfortunately, many of the women enterprises are going to be impacted. And who says impacting women enterprise also talk about impact on the family, impact on the children, because women, when they earn something, they're more likely to spend over 80% of whatever they earn into the family, welfare. So education, health, you name it, food, everything. The women will tend to invest more in the families. So this is the issue that is facing us. And I think what we have to look at when it comes to women issues on the continent is look at the entire infrastructure and the structure as well. What I say structure is that women very often, they cannot have access, they don't have land rights, they cannot have capital to start their business. And so this is where we need to relook at our laws, we relook at the structures so that these women can be empowered more. And of course, empowerment also means access to education, access to technology, access to the appropriate information at the right time, when to grow the crops. I mean, all these issues have to be dealt with so that we ensure not just food security, but we also look at, the much longer term. And the challenges are still huge because, as I said earlier on, water, erratic rain pattern, all these are impacting the sector, at least agriculture. So there are very serious issues that we have to tackle. But I think hope should not be lost, because I think now that Africa has endorsed and of course has implemented the free trade agreement, I think we are talking about 1.2 billion population with a 1 trillion economy. I think there we should be able to encourage trade within the Africa region, which should help women, at least in that sector for agriculture.
Thank you very much. This question actually has a scope for a larger discussion, I'm sure, which we cannot fulfill now. But the answer was very insightful. Next, I invite Chusa from Zimbabwe to present his next question. Thank you.
Greetings everyone, my name is José Ramos-Horta.
Greetings everyone, my name is José Ramos-Horta. I am the founder, coordinator for Maniga Youth Assembly, which is the biggest youth organization in Maniga, Zimbabwe. As Maniga Youth Assembly, we are engaged in tree planting on Dangavura Mountain. We are planting indigenous trees to rebuild the much deforested mountain. Maya is combining effort with the Mutare City Council to rebuild the mountain to combat deforestation and climate change. This project has a great potential to be replicated in other communities and help restore vegetation around Mutare. Also, we are encouraging residents to plant trees in the street within their communities. I thank you.
Well done, because increasingly we have to add value to indigenous trees. And what has been shown, I think there are plenty of data on this, that you can increase productivity, at least from the forest cover, when there is a mix of indigenous trees along with exotic trees. So the productivity increases, the yields increase. And one way of also addressing food security in many parts of the world is to relook at our laws, at our law of indigenous trees, lesser known and underutilized crops. And I think the way you're operating, if I understand correctly, is that you're promoting the plantation of indigenous trees. And I think indigenous fruits and indigenous vegetables, all these, they present huge potential to addressing hidden hunger. So definitely it's a very good move, and it should be promoted elsewhere, how to encourage forest cover using indigenous trees. So at least, if anything else, you can address immediate food security for the communities who are going into this project. So it's a very important one. Thank you.
Thank you. It's really important to amplify such projects. Next, I invite Andres from Venezuela, from Colombia, to present his next question. Thank you.
Cordial greeting to all.
Cordial greeting to all. My name is David Barragan. I am from Colombia.
For the opportunity.
Thanks for the opportunity you give me to be here. My question is, when sponsored dollars are spent on woman-led projects, statistics show that the impact of the money goes a further way as they tend to impact the world communities.
How can women be empowered?
How can women be empowered to lead more projects, get more funding,
and create more impactful
change?
Thank you. One thing that we must, being a woman, depending, of course, on the part of the world you actually live, is a challenge. In some countries, they're not even allowed to be born. That's one thing. Where some parts of the world there is increasing female feticide. Then there are parts of the world where women do not have access, girls cannot have access to an education. And, there are so many challenges associated with the girl child to begin with. So to be able to actually capitalize on this 52% resource, the human capital resource that women represent across the world, we're going to have to empower that girl with an education to begin with. Then we're going to have in the family of that girl a cheerleader. And if that cheerleader is the father, is even better. She needs to be told from a very early age that she's capable of doing anything, because she is capable of doing anything, but she has to be told that. She has to develop her self-confidence. Because when she has the self-confidence, it's only then that she will be able to take risk. And taking risk matters in the world of entrepreneurship. And as you have said, when a woman gets more money, she invests more in the family. And of course, the family becomes, of course, does very well. So we need to empower that woman so that she can take risk. She can be, of course, a role model for other girls actually growing up in that part of the world. And then also we need societies, the country to actually bring in the appropriate legal framework so that that woman can stand for election. She can be empowered to be on boards, and all these request a concerted action with the various societies. And of course, we talk about gender, it's men and women. So we need both working together. But if we are to focus on women issues, then definitely that girl must be given appropriate education, and of course must have the appropriate infrastructure where she can start a company. She can do whatever she wants, because at the end of the day, the impact is going to be on the family. And as Mahatma Gandhi has rightly said, if you educate a girl, you educate a family, you educate a community, you educate a nation, you educate the world. So it starts with the girl, and of course with the mother and with the family.
Thank you so much, Excellency. And next, I invite Hilario CAHUN, a researcher and professor from Quintana Roo, Mexico, to present the next question.
Madam King, Michabeles, good morning.
Madam King,
how are you?
Michabeles, good morning. How are you all? In Mexico, our indigenous communities are being affected by the lack of knowledge of the usage of new technologies. In my case, working in an indigenous primary school, the only way I can attend my students is going physically to the community using all the security protocols. Education is one of the most important tools for change. How can our projects and voices be amplified?
I think in that particular case, it calls for investment in the appropriate infrastructure and access to internet, because now it's becoming the favorite mode of communication. And I think over the past year, we have seen how important access to information has been, and it's been sourced essentially from the internet, of course, with access through the appropriate investment in the infrastructure, the IT infrastructure. So I think there it boils down to government, how much investment the government is making. And I think, again, COVID has highlighted that this is going to be a premium source of business. We have seen, at least in my country, we have seen an emergence in electronic communication, electronic purchasing, everything. So this is an area which is worth investing, and as you have rightly said, it's something that has to be looked at this government level, community level, that you'll be able to access these communities through technologies. But I think having said this, while we put so much emphasis on IT infrastructure, there is one thing that it can never replace. It can never replace the human touch. So you can have all the best infrastructure, but sometimes paying a visit to these indigenous people may make a much bigger difference than just communicate with them virtually.
Thank you, Excellency. I completely agree. And thank you very much for addressing all the questions raised by you. I request, please, Dr. Ash to provide his remarks.
Thank you so much, Gabby. And I want to say, convey my deepest gratitude, Your Excellency, for the tremendous insight and wisdom that you've shared with us. And we have a number of young people from different parts of the world, and many, like you said, are in a situation where access to resources and technology has impeded education, and of course a range of other issues that are faced as a consequence of COVID. But you brought up a number of important points, including, of course, the fact that these challenges that we're up against at this moment in time, including, of course, COVID, but a range of different issues, actually also present opportunities. And it's about being able to identify those opportunities and take action in a manner that we're able to invest in technology and education and health, and also be able to address these very important issues, particularly of educating women. And we know that this period is one that set us back in a very big way as a consequence of COVID in terms of education, particularly for girls. And therefore, I want to echo your call on the youth of the POP movement to come together and to take action, and also to call into question the leadership and the policies that are being implemented. And yes, we need to keep our ears and eyes open to what the developments will be in the course of the next few days. But it's very important that we do collect and amplify our voices about these issues and come together to find solutions. And it's crucial that we do that. So I just want to thank you very, very much for your great insights. And we do have some questions from the audience. If I may, I'll request, there's a question from a person by the name of Niranjan Roy, who asks how COVID-19 would create a space for sustainable multilateralism. If Your Excellency, you would share a few words and reflections on that, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Already, the COVID has shown how we need to engage in multilateralism. And I think it goes without saying that we're going to actually look at multilateralism. It has to be sustained, because it goes without saying that this discussion has to be engaged across the globe. But I think there's something much more fundamental than this. When we talk about multilateralism, what kind of multilateralism do we have in mind? Do we have in mind the same multilateral system that has been in existence since the Second World War? Because this is when the term was coined, and this is when the institutions were being set up to promote multilateralism. And multilateralism, as proposed after the Second World War, was mostly to address peace. Now that we have the system as we know it, where the powers, as we have known it, the major powers as we have known it, is shifting. We are increasingly, to me, in my opinion, we are living in a multipolar world where Asia is rising. And we have seen that this multilateral system, as we have known it, immediately after the Second World War, it may not be appropriate to look at the challenges which are facing us. And one of the challenges which we're talking about today, climate change, I think calls for a multilateral system which is going to be fit for purpose. So the question we have to ask ourselves, is that multilateral system that we have still fit for purpose to address sustainable multilateralism? So this is something that we have to really look at, and it calls for some major changes. I don't see it happening immediately, because it's very easy to stick to the status quo. How it's going to actually pan out over the next few years remains to be seen. But some regions across the world, they are agitating for their own space at the multilateral table. So we're going to have to watch and see how the world handles this, because it impacts not just in terms of policy, but also in terms of investment, because we talked about the capitalization of the Green Fund, for example. Is the present system will be able to actually bring all the big players around the table? So these are questions we have to see. But nonetheless, it is clear that the COVID has shown that we need a multilateral system to tackle global issues. It cannot be tackled nationally. It cannot be tackled regionally. It has to have a global approach. And this global approach can only be when all the, and again, I highlight on the G20, the big G20 countries, they have the clout and they have the resources to address the challenges that are going to be facing us.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Indeed, and I think this is a really important point. We do have a few more minutes, and I thought I would ask you. We have a youth mentor from Latin America, and she's asking a question which is about gender equality. And she says sustainable development will not be possible without gender equality. how can this be implemented into the agenda of countries, especially where violence against women is common and prevalent? And how can more women be included in politics and decision-making at company and country level? She's a young leader who's actually got a great entrepreneurial spirit and is our mentor on ocean issues and is extremely active on several fronts. So this is from Anna. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Ash. Anna, we have a huge challenge ahead of us in terms of looking at gender parity. And if you look at Beijing, 25 years ago, we had the major CEDAW conference out in Beijing. And if you look at what's happened over the past 25 years, many of the gains that we have made have been reversed, if only over the past year with the COVID. We have seen gender violence have increased tremendously over the past year. We have seen that happening right in front of us as people stay in lockdown. And if you look at women representation, it's not there. So there is a huge task ahead of us to look at gender. Even the word gender equality rings so hollow because we're not there. In terms of women politics, unfortunately, we're going to have to relook at, and I have to say this, at the quota system. Because if we don't impose a quota system in our law, there's no way that we will have representation of women in the political arena. And women in the Fortune 500 companies, again, we need government. We need government to ensure that there is representation of women in boards. And there are some very progressive countries. If you look at a country like Norway, for example, where the leadership steps in and the government steps in when a country doesn't have the appropriate percentage of women on the board. So we need government, we need the law, we need to implement them. Otherwise, women will not be making headway. And as I said, if you look at the Beijing plus 25, many of the gains we have made, we have lost. So there is a huge task ahead of us. But I think at the end of the day, there is something which I have to say. I may sound like a broken record, but women should show solidarity to women. And this is, again, where we are weak as a community of women. So I will have to cite for the umpteenth time Madeleine Albright when she says there is a special place in hell for those women who do not help women. So we have our homework to do. We're going to have to, to get together and to show solidarity. When a woman is out there, we make sure that she stays there for a long time because she becomes that role model for the young girl growing up. And we're going to have to fight our way. And it is not going to be possible. It's not going to be possible without solidarity. And one thing I will tell you, there will be no place for you at the table. So what you're going to have to do is to bring your own chair.
That is so beautiful, and I have to say, Your Excellency, you're a model and an idol to all of us, and I know that certainly you inspire young people and young women and generations across the world. I'm wondering, what do you think is the situation with regard to leadership, especially with regard to young women and issues of environmental justice in Mauritius? And this is a question that another mentor from the POP movement, Dr. Norma, is asking. But I also want to say that, you're such an inspiration to all of us. So thank you very much for leading the way. And, you do it by example constantly. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ash. It's been a pleasure and all the very best. You're doing a great job. And so let us see how we can make the case for the ocean. This is an area which is highly neglected. And I think last time we spoke about the non-territorial waters where a lot of work has to be done. So please focus on this, not just territorial water, but of course those which are outside, and 70% of our ocean are still outside that space, outside jurisdiction. So make your movement be heard and address that issue as it matters more and more, and we need to protect more and more and encourage the creation of the marine reserve, and so that our livelihoods on this planet is certain, and it's, of course, it's there. So great job and all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. This has been so inspiring, and we continue to look to you, and you know, your voice echoes in our hearts. So thank you, and we shall you know, put in our very best efforts to act on the great you know, direction you've given us, and your tremendous guidance. And with that, I'll ask Gabby to come in, please, and thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It has been an honor from hear from you and learn about this crucial topic. In conclusion, we understand that to ensure environmental justice means to ensure equitable distribution of environmental risks and benefits, fair and meaningful participation on environmental decision-making, recognition of community ways of life, local knowledge and cultural difference, and the capability of communities and individuals to function in flourish and social time. I believe that this session has sensitised us about this and equipped us with some possible approaches that can be forward advocated for towards an advancement of equity and environmental justice. I thank you for your invaluable presence with us today, and also extend my gratitude to our beloved youth leaders from across different time zones for your participation. I would also like to thank the Permanent Secretariat of the World Summit of Nobel Peace Laureates and the Gandhi King Foundation for providing the POOT movement the opportunity to host this webinar on an important topic. Thank you very much, and wishes for a fruitful L Day 2021.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you, and thank you very much to the Nobel Secretariat and the Gandhi King Foundation, and to all the young people and our amazing audience and participants too. This has been a very, very insightful conversation, and we look forward to staying in touch. We do have some social media handles which we're happy to share with you and to stay in contact. I'll also drop our website link here for everybody's easy access, and request Philo and Gabby to drop social media handles here. We greatly look forward to staying in touch, and I want to convey my deepest thanks